Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In our broadcast tonight, we're going to be answering one big question. Will the opposition, the combined opposition, unseat President George Weah in 2023? If your answer is yes, who from the opposition bloc is most likely to make President Weah a one-term president? I want to welcome all viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, and joining me from Philadelphia is Mr. Wilmot Cooney. He's our chief political analyst, and he's a staunch supporter of President Weah. Mr. Cooney, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you.
Also joining me is the communication director for the Alternative National Congress USA branch, Mr. Yankweh Boma. He's going to be making the case for Mr. Cummings tonight. Mr. Boma, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for having me, Dennis.
And by the way, this is your first time on Focus on Liberia. We give you our ceremonial cola to say welcome.
Thank you.
Also joining us is from Metro Atlanta is Carl Famula. Carl is independent-minded in this discussion tonight. Carl, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for having me. I'm not independently minded. I'm a part of the coalition political parties, and so I'm going to be talking on behalf of my organization.
The Unity Party, or
in this discussion, Unity Party is part of the CPP.
Yeah,
so we're going to be discussing what a terrible president George Weah is and why we've decided to bind together to defeat him.
Last but not the least is our political commentator and political analyst here at Focus on Liberia, Mr. Mohammed Sharif. He's a product of Waplo Institute from Kiliko, Cameroon. Mr. Sharif, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Shout out to the alumni and everyone out there in Waplo land. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see, I'm getting some grinding noise here, so sometimes if you're not speaking, you can mute your phone. Call that noise may be coming from you.
It's not. It sounds like typing. And I'm not typing.
All right. We'll say welcome tonight. We'll be going around the room first to answer the big question that we have tonight. Is the opposition, or will or can the opposition unseat President Weah come 2023? I want to start with a supporter of President Weah. The obvious answer is no, but let's hear from the house's mouth. Mr. Cooney.
Well, no, obviously not. And you see the people that are going to be making the case for the opposition, they're not going to tell you anything the opposition will do, but rather they're going to tell you all the negatives of Weah. The negative of Weah is not a winning strategy. It's not what the opposition is not the reason why the opposition should seek power. I mean, this is your time to tell the Liberian people why you think you will defeat President Weah instead of talking about President Weah. The other time we were on the show, we put forward a very strong case why we think President Weah will win. Now, this is the time for the opposition to put forward their case why they think they will win George Weah and leave all the negativity of George Weah is this, George Weah is that. If that's the only argument they have, we would really be in a comfortable position. If the only thing the opposition has is what they perceive as the negative of George Weah for winning political power, that's a discussion we'll be very happy to have.
Thank you. We were supposed to have Mr. Larry Kennedy, a supporter of Mr. Joseph N. Boakai, but due to some conflict, that last-minute conflict, he's not able to be here. He's going to try to join, but while we wait for Larry, we're going to go ahead. Let's go to Mr. Yankweh Boma from the ANC. Mr. Boma, same question. Will the opposition unseat President Weah in 2023?
Thank you, Dennis. And as you stated, this is my debut, so I'm going to be as precise as possible in my deliberation here. Uh, with reference to your question, the answer is definitely yes. Look, I think Mr. Connie just pretty much defeated his own argument right now by saying the negative of Weah. What that tells us is that there are negatives. And it is, those are the negatives that we're going to mention today, and for the Liberian people to know. Now, even if you remove the negatives of Mr. Weah, there are still other issues that Mr. Weah has in regards to his connection with the international community, some of the crimes that people talk about in Liberia, and the economy. I mean, there is absolutely no path for George Weah to win the current election. Now, the only thing that we have to do as member of the CPP is to stay together. If we stay together, Dennis, I can assure you that the day for George Weah will be numbered, and I can guarantee you it will happen. I believe strongly that the CPP will hold, and if the CPP does hold, George Weah will not return as president of Liberia, which will be a relief to Liberians because this man has put us into so many nightmares. Our people are suffering, our market women are suffering, children who go to school, they are suffering. Everyone in Liberia right now is complaining. Every one of us here can bear testament to that, and I would submit here that yes, the opposition will defeat George Weah and get him out.
Mrs. Famula?
Can you pass on me and go last? I just have a little bit of background noise.
Okay. Let me hear from Mohammed.
Yes. Thank you, Dennis, again for having me on the show. I guess a proper question will be, who is better prepared to take on George Weah, whether it's Mr. Boykai or whether it's Cummings or some of the other top tier candidates. I don't have, and I don't think any of the panelists tonight have any sufficient empirical evidence to adduce that, the election is going to go one way or the other. In the absence of, opinion polls and different scientific data, it is very difficult to, kind of estimate how this election is going to pan out. So I think that if you ask me who is sort of better prepared, I would say Cummings seemed to be prepared because of his a very acute business background in terms of.
Mr. Sheriff, that's not the question. And I'm not saying you have to answer my question, but the question is, will the opposition unseat President Weah come 2023? If I can get a yes or no, that would be wonderful. If not, you can respond any way you want. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to submit an absolute yes or no because these things are fluid. It's not, again, we don't have any empirical evidence. There are no polls in Liberia. There are no debates. So the president doesn't have to go in front of the electorate to speak to them, to communicate his views. So any one of us on this show tonight making absolute conclusion will be doing so as a partisan. And I don't want to sound like one of the partisans. I want to be very fair to all sides. And so it's difficult for me to answer the question just based on the fact that we don't have those evidence. The only thing that we can go by right now is the last election, the last midterm election.
And we'll get that. And we'll get that, Mr. Sherry. We will get there. Let me go to Cole. Same question. If it's difficult for you, Cole, let me know.
No, it's good. I'm good.
All right. Will the opposition unseat Weah 2023?
I think that is absolutely going to happen. I think the only reason, first of all, that Weah won in 2017 is because the people who are united today were not united yesterday. And most people that supported Weah, that no longer support Weah, did so because they wanted to give him an opportunity to do something fresh and new and innovative. He has disappointed everyone, including himself. So whether or not he will be unseated is not the question so much. I think that we should really be discussing. It is why. Why is his leadership such a dismal failure? And what types of expertise and what strengths does the CPP have to offer the Liberian people? So yes, absolutely. We have leadership in the CPP that have experience, that have wisdom, that have education, that understand the culture, that understand global culture, local culture. It's a massive group of talented people who will bind together and support whichever standard bearer we choose for the success of the country.
Thank you. So if the answer for you is yes, I will start with Mr. Bowman to say, if the opposition will do this, who, in your opinion, is most likely to unseat President Weah? And I want to give you some names here. Is it Mr. Joseph Boakai? Is it Mr. Alexander Cummings? Is it Mr. Dr. Cassell or Councilor Tiawon Gongolo? For tonight, we are not going to be dealing with Dr. Cassell and Councilor Gongolo because their representatives were not invited. So I'm going to start with those two names and say, Mr. Bowman, who, in your opinion, is most likely to unseat President Weah?
Thank you, Dennis. Look, I came into this conversation with passion and purpose. And I say that very strongly because if you look at Liberia now, our nation is in crisis. We have a president who doesn't know his hair from his tail. He doesn't know the direction in which this country is going. He has no idea how to revitalize this economy. He has no idea how to even talk to his own people. So we do have a crisis here in Liberia. What would it take for us to get out of that crisis? Look, you mentioned some very good individuals. But if you look at the collective acumen of all of those people that you mentioned, one person stands above. And I'll tell you this, the conversation that we're going to have tonight has to be whether we want to stay in the past that is represented by pathetic history, whether we want to we will stay with the present, which is represented by a very, very sad leadership, or do we want to represent a future that is going to be fruitful, that is going to be represented by a man who I believe strongly has the will, the passion, and the know-how to change Liberia. If I were to survey all of these and look at one individual, there is no one other than Mr. Alexander B. Cummings. And I'll tell you why. Mr. Alexander Cummings, not only that, there's so much about his, and I know you say I got 2 minutes, but please let me flow for a minute.
Sure.
I know we always talk about Mr. Cummings as this, guy that worked as an executive in corporate America. But I think what it takes to be a leader is passion. Someone who has a passion. And this is why I came into this conversation saying I came with a passion. You have to have passion to lead your people. You have to have passion to help your people. And for a man to leave his comfort to come into a noisy country like Liberia, leaving behind everything that he could have done and enjoy himself, but he came to help his country. Not only is he helping, he started that a long time ago. A guy who will take Liberia to the 21st century, a guy who has pledged to build an infrastructure that can mimic the 21st century, a guy who is willing to improve the healthcare system. Who else has that? There's only one man in this race that has the proven record. He's done it in corporate America. He's done it all around the world with his business negotiation skills. And this is desperately what Liberia needs. Someone who can negotiate with other world leaders to lure investors into Liberia to give our young people who are graduating today without jobs. Those children need him. They need this kind of leader who will create jobs for them and bring investors. And Mr. Alexander Cummings, it is that man.
Carl, do you agree?
If I agree that Mr. Cummings is the person?
Yeah.
I believe that Mr. Cummings is one of the strongest people that could take over the country. Yes, I think that I don't think he's the only person, but I do agree that he is definitely a skilled and experienced person, and is definitely positioned himself well to do a wonderful job as a president. That is without question. Though I think where I differ is that he is the only person. And I think that that is that is the issue that I have right now, is that we need to make sure that we make it an even contest and allow the cream to rise to the top. If Alex Cummings is the cream, he will definitely rise to the top. But I think, for CBP, it's a little soon for us to narrow our candidacy down to just two individuals. There are a lot of members of the CBP that will be given an opportunity to put their hat in the race. And so the discussion we're having is limited to the people who we know right now are contending, or contesting. But I don't believe they're the only people who are contesting. Is Cummings one of the strongest contenders? I absolutely think so, yes.
If elections were held today, Carl, who do you think is most likely from the opposition to unseat President Weah?
If elections were to happen today?
Yes.
I honestly don't have the statistical data to support that. If we're going to go off of 2017 numbers, which is the only numbers that we have, Joseph Boyka did get far more votes than Alex Cummings. But, doing what I do for a living, which is based a lot on statistical data that expires as times change and things change and circumstances change, that's not necessarily the most reliable basis for us to project what's going to happen. New data needs to be collected. And that's one of the shortfalls of the situation in Liberia, is that we don't really have legitimate, I use that word correctly, legitimate trained statisticians who are actually collecting broad data correctly. I know that, Ta Wongbi and them pretended to know what they were doing, collecting all kinds of nonsense and calling it data. And I said nonsense because what I do for a living is numbers based, and their methodology was terribly flawed. They did the same thing when it came to the senatorial race in Nimba. So people have a tendency to do things that they don't know how to do and pretend to do things that they don't know how to do.
Right.
Statistics gathering is one of those. So
let me interject.
I cannot project anything based on numbers from the past, because too many things have changed and we need new data.
Right. So let me push you a little bit, because even in October 2023, we're not going to have data.
We will. We're working on it. We're working on it.
There is no, of all the elections that I witnessed, there have been no data for us to be very sure who's going to win. We've just been using.
Well, not to be sure. You can never be sure.
Right. So what I'm getting at there, you can pass those words, any way you want. But what I'm saying is, in October 2023, there's no history where we've really been able to use data to determine who's going to win. We've been going with other political variables. So I wanted you to put on your political hat now and tell me, if elections were held today, forget data. We're not going to have data in 2023.
But then I think you want to project the question to someone who doesn't operate off of actual reality. I can't, paint a picture of things that I can't. So listen, I know we will lose. I know that right now, if Joseph Boyka were the standard bearer, Joseph Boyka would win. I know also if CPP chose Alex Cummings would win. I believe with very strong confidence that whoever we collectively, let's talk about the numbers we do know, right? Whoever we collectively choose and collectively support against George Weah will win. So it is more of an issue of the movement and where we're going. And the contest is not going to be between the two people. It's going to be the two of them, whether they're on the same ticket or not. They will definitely support each other to the presidency. And if and when that happens, George Weah will not stand a chance. So the reason I'm speaking the way I'm speaking is because I believe very much that the numbers show that we have to hold together as CPP. And I'm not going to allow myself to antagonize myself by talking against some group that I'm in a coalition with. It's not going to happen.
Thank
So,
you.
maybe somebody else will do that, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I want us to win, so I'm putting on my winning hat. My political hat says we are united, and that is how we're going to defeat Weah.
Thank you. I mean, everything we're looking at points to the fact that things are not looking good. But let me go to Mr. Cummings, Mr. Cooney, who is a strong supporter of President Weah. You heard from Mr. Bowman and Cole, right?
Yeah, and everything I heard support the point I've made. Politics is the context of ideas. And when you listen to people in the opposition, what they're selling is elitism, is quote unquote some kind of education, some kind of competency. We're not saying co-vision for the country. We're not saying broad national policies that may be different from the current government. If they're not selling you elitism, some kind of quote unquote competency or some kind of education, they're selling you everything that they believe is negative about Weah. I mean, an election in a democracy should be around co-vision. What does the CCP believe in? What are people supposed to vote for? What are you telling the Liberian people they should vote for? They should vote because you believe that George Weah is this, George Weah is that. But what are you bringing to the table? So we're not hearing any national vision. The brother talk about passion. Passion is not politics. And the most comical thing he said is that Cummings left the comfort of his home to go to Liberia. Who has the history of leaving the comfort of the most pleasurable life to go to Liberia when Liberia was in dire straits? It was George Weah that abandoned the comfort of his Monte Carlo home to go to Liberia in the heat of the war to contribute to disarmament, to contribute to giving hope to the Liberian people. And then we hear now because somebody here Liberia is okay, they run to Liberia. You say the person abandoned his comfort. What comfort? When Liberia was in crisis, we were there. We were in the war. The only person or one of the persons that gave hope to that country was George Weah. The Liberian people know that. So basically what I'm saying is, saying all of the nasty and negative thing about George Weah is not a political vision that people will follow. And when you push them, they fall back to this Trumpian language. The only way George Weah will win is that George Weah cheat. Mario, since George Weah became president, there have been a series of elections that have not gone the way of the CDC. The opposition has won some of those elections. No cheating. Now you're introducing this Trumpian violence-prone language that the only way George Weah will win is that George Weah cheats. That is a symbolic of a group that has no vision. They don't have cohesion. One of the Achilles of the CPP is their own unity. It's their own unity. They're disintegrating. They don't have a common front. They're pretending to have a common front. And I've made this prediction. Whatever the result of the CCP political competition will be, yes, the top guns and the leadership will make some political speeches, but it will not filter down. You take Mr. Cummings,
2 minutes.
Mr. Joseph Boakai will not support Cummings. They know that.
Thank you.
How long are you speaking for, Dennis?
You said 2 minutes, then you're allowed to better go for 10 minutes.
Hey man, y'all been going 2 minutes just so much keep the time on one another now.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Let me go to Mr. Sharif. Mr. Sharif, you are the two sides I'm hearing. For Mr. Bowman, he said flat down, hands down, is Mr. Cummings who's going to, if elections were held today, Mr. Cummings is the winner. Cole is saying that is somehow dependent on CPP holding together. From what we see, the CPP is cracking. So based on what you've heard so far, I know you don't want to pick a side. What is the state of the CPP and how does that support the proposition that if they hold together, they're going to win?
I think what Cole mentioned, she is absolutely correct. And I want to add something else to that, is the fact that George Weah, I'm concerned that George Weah is going to introduce political manipulation during the 2023 election. As we can see, the example of the case of Brani Samokai, who I suspect that the ruling party, the president, in fact, is using the court system to ensure that Mr. Samokai does not take his seat. Mr. Samokai is the winner of the Senate race in Lofa County. And so all of these different entanglements are going to be introduced as impediments to the opposition. So we have to be concerned as to what Weah is going to do if he's defeated in 2023. So at this moment, I'm also concerned about the opposition. The political opposition is coming apart. The CPP coalition is coming apart at a time that they should be really be coming together. So if you look at what's going on now in the Liberty Party, which is a critical part of that coalition, is very concerning. So where, I'm sure where strategists and supporters will be very happy to see what's going on now with the tit for tat internally within the Liberty Party, which is a critical component of the CPP. So they need to get their ass together, at this time. Now is the time. They don't have time for all the bickerings. If you listen to what's going on, they have begun to fill the airwaves with accusations and counter accusations. And that's, and I think that's going to go in the street soon if they don't have a handle on this.
So Mr. Sharif, in your belief, if the CPP does not hold together, does that give Judge Weah the victory?
That gives him a chance. I'm not going to absolutely say that give him the victory, but that does give him a chance. And why do you need to give him a lifeline when he already has the largesse? He already controls the national budget. He can go in and spend millions that the opposition doesn't have. So he has the financial advantage to pump more money into his campaign that the CPP coalition doesn't have. And so you don't need to give him another lifeline by coming apart at this time.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Bowman. Let's set the basis, right? And let me ask you this question. What are the key issues that Liberia is confronted with, and how does a coming administration address those issues?
Thank you, Dennis. And before we go there, let me just address a little bit of things that my good brother, Mr. Coney, spoke of. Sometimes when you're saying something, you have to at least make reference to yourself, so at least you know that what you're saying have some, can come back to you and you can defend it. You're talking about the collaborating parties in the context of no vision. Let me ask you, does Judge Weah have a vision? Has he said anything to us since he got in power? Do we even know when he will speak to us? Has he spoken to his people other than audio tapes? So when we're talking about, individuals with vision, please don't count Judge Weah, because Judge Weah in the Liberian parlance, he's been a bobo since he got to power. So we can't deal with bobo and then we say the other people don't have vision. So, and the vision that we have, I think in the fullness of time, you will get to know. And one thing that you should know too, all the things that you said, Mr. Weah did when he was playing, he got paid for it. He was paid. So he wasn't doing a service that went unpaid. So let's get that clear. Okay. Now, in terms of what, and again, let me just quickly agree with both Yah and Brother Sharif, and Brother Sharif. Look, anyone who emerges from the CPP stands a strong chance of winning Judge Weah. They will beat Judge Weah. This is one of the reasons why those of us that are in the collaboration continue to pray that this collaboration sticks together, because the strength of everyone in this collaboration will help to get lift and victory to the CPP. So I would strongly want to do that. Look, Dennis, right now, what the Liberian people really need, it's not one thing that they need. There are a lot of things going on, especially with the catastrophic behavior of this government that is not even doing anything. If you look at every sector of the country, is going down. Today, we just heard the U.S. government today on a press conference talking to us like we were babies. We're supposed to be an independent nation. The economy is down in the drain. And when we say, they say, oh, you only mention all the negative. Well, what are the positive there, Mr. Connie? What are the positive? Help me know some of the positives. I would be glad to discuss the positive, but if there are no positive, obviously we will dwell on the negatives. If you have students demonstrating every day, you have civil servants can't get paid. Some of them going for 8 months, no pay. You have our international record. Our international reputation is shattered. I mean, please tell me some of the good things that we should tell George Weah about, other than him playing football in some way in Slowway. Is that
thank you, Mr. Bowman?
Stable? My brother, I submit. Look, I said it. Then let me just finish on this point. I said it from the beginning. This is a contest of three things, three choices. Whether you want to stay in the past, or if you want to get stuck in this present that you're in with George Weah, or we want to move forward in the future with a better and 21st century Liberia. And this is where we're coming from here, saying that if the CPP, if we hold, and with Mr. Cummings' vision, and I will keep saying Mr. Cummings because this is the man in who I believe, and it doesn't mean that I don't believe that Joseph Boakai will do a better job when he gets there, but I believe strongly that with the CPP hold and Mr. Cummings as the head of that CPP, his ideas would lead Liberia to a 21st century nation.
Just a yes or no. So if the CPP does not hold, what's the future? What's the prospect of Mr. Cummings winning?
I'll tell you this. There's fight in every organization the CPP will hold.
I'm just saying, for any weird reason, if it doesn't hold, like we are seeing the crack in the Labour Party now.
Dennis, the CPP will hold. We have faith. We are confident. Look, there's always going to be infighting, even in families. But at the end, there are processes that we have in the framework document that will bind us together and will go as one unit.
Thank you. That framework document, since they pulled it out, they didn't bring it back. But let me go to you, Carl.
Yes.
Yeah, what are those key issues? Because you see, we have president come, president go. So, but we're still not there yet. So what are those key issues that the country is confronted with? And how does a Cummings or a Boakai administration fix those issues?
This is a great question. So Liberia has a montage of challenges, layered challenges. If I could, since I only have 2 minutes, this could be a doctoral thesis. But human capital flight, brain drain, and on the other hand, we also have poor human capital development. So where we do have people that we've invested in as a country, educated as a country, there's been a huge human capital resource flight since George Weah took over, partly because he sidelined technocrats in favor of people who were shouting Weah during the campaign. So we have a lot of doctors and technicians that have left the Republic of Liberia. This is something people don't really talk about. So one of the things that I know that CPP will do is a CPP government would focus on bringing everyone to the table, reuniting Liberians, and further developing the capacity of the citizens that exist within the country that have never left, drawing upon the talent that has run away from the Weah administration because they were marginalized. Many people that state resources sent to school have left the country because they were not allowed to work under a Weah administration in favor of people who have absolutely no education. The Weah administration has employed people instead of empowering them by educating them first to come back. He's not even preparing for a second term. You know, this is one of the things that he did terribly. As much as they like to complain about Ellen sent everyone to school. You want to work in government, go to school. When you come back, or if you go to school right here in Liberia, then we'll start you off and we'll pair you with somebody who will mentor you. If you want a career in government, who will mentor you and prepare you for leadership. That's not happening. I know that a CPP government will build the capacity of young people to be able to do the things that they want to do. economic development, food security, the need for us to stop depending on imported starch staples. We will always import food. Every country imports food. But your staple food, rice, whether it be rice or cassava, whether we need to shift and diversify our staple food, these things will be studied and we will determine how to make a national effort that we will be able to feed ourselves the majority of what we consume. This is a national security crisis. And then the third thing I'm going to quickly talk about is re-education and redeveloping our curriculum to have a focus on a national identity and reinstill the pride that we grew up with, that this younger generation is not growing up with, having a sense of pride and respect for our country. If you listen to these younger people that have grown up after the war, most of them talk about Liberia with disdain and hatred. That has to change. No country can develop when everyone from the president down speaks of the country disrespectfully. On Flag Day was an opportunity for Weah to announce the country why it is important to love Liberia. Instead, he wrapped himself in the flag in the most bizarre manner and put the picture out there. No words of encouragement.
Thank you. Maybe picture speak louder, right?
I think he was trying to do that thing that Joseph Fambula did, wrap him. He's not a 19-year-old athlete. He's the president. There's protocol involved. You can't just wrap yourself in the flag.
Let me go to Mr. Cummings, the supporter of President Weah. I asked Mr. Bowman about the key issues, but I'll come back to you. You can dodge that question, Mr. Bowman. I'll go back to you on that. But Mr. Cummings, looking at the key issues that the country faces, how is Weah handling addressing those key issues that you believe the opposition, CPP, or any other opposition is incapable of doing?
Figures here, on the average, they spoke for more than 3 minutes. And when I'm making my point, I get interrupted. So I hope I will be protected by you. I listened to everything that is said. I made a case for George Weah the other night. The government is carrying on an aggressive program of rural electrification, rural construction, rural housing, education, electrification. All of these things are going on. And these are the programs, these are the development that the Liberian people will see for which they will elect George Weah. So somebody talk about positive.
Mr. Cummings, hold on, and I will put back your time, okay? I will put back your time. Don't what I'm saying here is, what are the key issues that the country faces? How is Weah addressing those issues that you believe the opposition is incapable of doing likewise?
But that's the issue. The country faces road infrastructure issue. The government is addressing those issues. The country faces a serious housing crisis. According to the UN statistics, for Liberia to solve its housing issue, Liberia need to build about 30,000 housing units a year. The president is addressing that. We got electrification issue, electricity issue. The president is addressing that. The president is addressing the issue of education. Someone talk about education, yeah. But maybe education is different. Education for the competence as opposed to education for ordinary people that are going to public schools and public universities. So there are different visions that we have. The president is addressing these issues. And these are the issues that the people will see for which this president will be elected. And to pick it back on some of the points they made, George Weah had no vision. And that's what I'm saying. If there's no discussion about George Weah, we're ready to play on that territory. George Weah didn't have no vision, so we don't have vision too. Okay, welcome to that discussion. And my brother talked about the judiciary. Some of these arguments, they are very flawed. Everybody on this platform knows that the Liberian judiciary was constituted by the Unity Party government. The entire judiciary. The Supreme Court, as we speak, is dominated by early appointed nominees, UP appointed nominees. How do you, in a fair court, a George Weah court? But these are the misinformation that people carry around, And you talk about sidelining technocrats. These are the same corrupt, elite, educated people that misrule the country over the years. And I don't think the Liberian people miss them. So if the message for the CCP is elect us so that we can reassemble the same intelligentsia that misrule you, if that is the message we are prepared, to fight on. So you can go on and on and on. The Liberian people, they are very much capable of making that distinction between what this government is doing, whether it is a continuation of its pro-poor agenda, and what the opposition is offering. Since they've been organized, every time you ask for the vision is coming. They're supposed to be the educated people. They can't even come around a common vision. The only thing that they were organized around was how to divide government jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Kone.
Put them together.
Mr. Kone, thank you.
We've not seen anything. They are disintegrating whether as individual entities or as
Mr. Kone. Mr. Kone. So one last thing. So the president is what according to you, what the president is doing, the electrification, the rural housing, and the payment of school fees. Yeah. Hold on. Are those things that the opposition is incapable of doing?
But so far, they have not even demonstrated the ability to comprehend those things or to even present an alternative plan. Tell me, say, look, Georgia is building housing this way, but this is how we're going to do it. Georgia is building roads this way. This is how we're going to do it. When you give them that opportunity, they don't even tell you anything like that. They want to tell you, George Weah is this.
Can I address one thing that Mr. Cooney said that is not true?
I'm still interrupted.
Yeah, just jot it down, Cole. I want to go to Mohammed.
I actually, okay, because when there's a gross dishonest,
I will come to you, Cole. Just write it down. Let me go to Mohammed because
Mr. Host, I need to be protected. I'm facing.
Hold on.
The man, your time been over.
It's taking too long.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, Mr. Sheriff, we're talking about the key issues, and I want you to look at both Weah and the opposition. Mr. Cooney is claiming that Weah is addressing those issues, and those key issues are housing, school fees, etc. Is that true? And do you see an alternative plan from the opposition, Mr. Sheriff?
I believe that the opposition can do those things. They're not that difficult. Liberia has not even have a well-paved motor road from Monrovia to Harper.
Mr. Sheriff, my question is, do you see an opposition alternative? Do you see their plan of, and how they will achieve those things? Do you see that?
No plan.
Well, the opposition. So one of the problems that I see is the opposition's inability to articulate fully what they have in store for the Liberian people. They have not sufficiently demonstrated that they are the alternative to this autocrat in the executive mansion. They've not demonstrated that they are the alternative to George Weah, who is very corrupt and very inefficient. And so until they can begin to do those things, I think they're going to have some problem. But I would submit to you that, if the question were that who is better prepared at this time to meet the challenges of 21st century Liberia, I would say, Mr. Cummings is better prepared because of his background as a businessman. I think that, he can bring that to the presidency. Certainly, the nation has tremendous unemployment issues, infrastructure issues, issues with the judiciary, and even encroachment on the legislature by the executive. I think Mr. Cummings may be better prepared. Now, if you get to
Yeah, but Mr. Sherry, before you get to that, when you say better, that means you are preferring he's better over Mr. Boakai. How so?
Mr. Boakai is a great you know a very good politician. Mr. Boakai has to explain to the Liberian people what he did for 12 years. And so he will have to try to extricate himself from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I don't know if he has the capacity to do that. He has to be his own man. And so, how is he going to do that? It'll be interesting to see how he can efficiently extricate himself from some of the shortcomings of that administration, and at the same time take credit for the good things from that administration. This is, the difficult balancing act of vice presidents who try to succeed their bosses. Mr. Cummings, in the last debate during the last election, his only answer was, "I'm a parked vehicle," which has now gone viral. That he was a parked car. Which means he didn't have anything to do. That is not an efficient political response when you are dealing with an electorate that's hungry, when you are dealing with perhaps 60 to 70% illiteracy rate in a country that has just come from a civil war. So that is not a response that is going to go down well with the Liberian people. So he has to do a better job of coming forth with strategies, with message. The issue is messaging. And when I look at this show, well, just real quick, when I look at some of the shows, like your show, for example, you have great people on here. You have Cole on here. You have some of the people from the other shows that you have. You have Mr. Bowman. You have Mr. Coney, who's certainly, a CDC person. That with the exception of Mr. Coney, who already has a home in the CDC, you have some of the great minds out here that the opposition can actually tap into to message their product, to go out there and explain to the Liberian people what they can do. The issue with Liberia is the opposition sometimes does not seem to know how to message, and that is an issue.
Thank you. Let me go back to Mr. Bowman. Mr. Bowman, there have been attempts by successive administrations to solve this Liberia's problem. Let me start with Doe because he came to power when I was in 4th grade. With a kind of military, UFO, football, and all that Lone Star, we had Doe, Green Revolution, etc. It didn't solve our problem, or the problem remained. We have Mr. Taylor with the biggest gun, and everybody fear him. So when he say go wherever he directs, people go. Our issues were not resolved. We had Mrs. Johnson Sirleaf with the Western style sophistication and tapping all the talents across the globe. We had that. Still, our issues are not addressed. Now you have this President Weah, this grassroots, common sense, pro kind of guy, and the issues still persist. Why has these things never worked? And what will Mr. Cummings do differently that has never been tried?
Dennis, look, obviously you outlined all the challenges that Liberia has and why they cannot be solved. But let me just, premise my conversation to what I've been saying here. Look, it's either the past, the present, or we look into the future. One of the things that it takes for a country to gain the kind of traction for investors is security. If you look at Liberia today, where is the security? Every day we wake up, we hear about someone getting killed. We hear children getting raped. We hear all of these things, all of these horrible stories, all of these horror coming out of Liberia. Then you can agree with me, I'm sure everyone on this panel can agree with me that this is not the kind of environment that investors want to go in and do investment. George Weah has created a situation that, let me use the word, that he cannot handle, and neither can Liberian handle. The investor themselves cannot handle. We're dealing with a country that no investor want to be a part of. I'm sure if Mr. Coney sits here today, he cannot count on his fingers 10 good global companies that are located into Africa, any one of them in Liberia today.
Mr. Bowman,
I'm coming to your point.
right, because what you're saying to me there is Mr. Cummings, what he will do is contingent upon Weah's flaws. That's what I'm hearing.
No, because look, there are a plethora of issues that Liberia needs to deal with. I'll give you an example. Look, Mr. Cummings has laid out, and again, I'll tell you that the CPP can hold, and the CPP, once the CPP framework is done, we will have there'll be a platform. But what I know of Mr. Cummings right now, we talk about Mr. Cummings, who actually wants to build the 21st century. He's talked about building an infrastructure in Liberia. Because look, and I think on another network, he said that he wants to build a system. Look, without a system, nothing happens. Everyone work the way they want to. Everybody act the way they want to. That is not the kind of Liberia that we need. We need a Liberia that has a system that everyone that comes into that system work in accordance with what that system dictates.
Mr. Bowman, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're saying, when I asked you what will Mr. Cummings do differently, you were saying people have not tried system. So Mr. Cummings is going to put a system into place because that has not been tried. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Mr. Cummings is going to institute a system. And he emphasized this a lot when he was speaking on other network, because Dennis, you can't have a country where no one knows the head or tail. Everyone is moving in different direction. You take someone from someplace and then put them somewhere, and they have no ability to know what's supposed to be done. And this is where we say, and not only will he put in a system, I believe he said that he would bring the right people on the bus. He would bring the right individuals. So no longer will we take some truck driver and make him finance minister, or we'll take someone that was working at a nursing home and come and make him agriculture minister. Look, we have to be serious in this country. Liberia is dying. Liberia is going in a direction that we ourselves do not want it to go. Mr. Cummings will institute a system. This is the kind of change that I believe Mr. Cummings, and he has said it, he will institute those changes, and he will implement the system that we all, as Liberians, we will fall into it, and we will work in unison. And I believe, look, there is a saying that synergy is energy. I always say that synergy is energy. When everyone works in same call, the energy is there to develop their country. And Mr. Cummings stands a better chance to bring that energy into Liberia and the synergy into Liberia for us to work for the common development of this country.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Focus on Liberia Tough Talking Thursday. We are discussing if elections were held today, which of the opposition is poised to unseat President Weah, or in the words of JNB, to take Weah down. We've been joined by Mr. Larry Kennedy, a staunch supporter of Mr. Joseph N. Boakai. He was held up somewhere, but he's back now. So, Mr. Kennedy, welcome to Focus on Liberia. My question to you is the same question I asked Mr. Bowman as to what JNB is going to do differently. And let me preface that on this, right? Mr. Boakai entered politics in 1972 when I was probably in diapers. And up to that time, I have not really seen any public stance that he has taken on any public issue whatsoever until he became vice president. We have Ellen, we have Doe, we have all these people. What is Mr. Boakai going to do differently that has not been tried?
So thanks, Dennis. And again, I apologize for joining so late. Thanks to your esteemed guests. I tried to follow a little bit in terms of the direction the conversation was taking before joining. But let me just say this. There is no substitute for experience, right? And some people will argue saying, oh, not just every experience. Well, technically, if you look at in Africa, not just in Africa, but over in the States as well, a lot of business people haven't been successful in the governance space. They haven't been very successful. Jimmy Carter was a businessman. He was a peanut farmer. When he came into the presidency, he only lasted one term. Ronald Reagan unseated him. We see the most recent guy, President Trump, businessman. A lot of times, business people do not make that transition. Joe Boakai has the experience. What Ambassador Boakai is going to do is similar to what everyone else is saying, right? Bring in the technical people, but not just the technical people, because we need a large cohort. We need a critical mass of technical people to get the job done. There was a reason why some of the biggest investment banks in this world failed. They have very smart people in there, but they still fail, right? They fail because no matter what you do, sometimes some people will come in, they just don't have the necessary experience. Liberia, despite, and today I listened to the American ambassador in Liberia spoke about what's going on with LEC. Despite spending over $1 billion, look at the number of people that have access to electricity. We still have one of the highest rates when it comes to paying for electricity in Africa. What is Boyka going to do? Well, he's going to bring that critical mass of technical people, whether at home or in the diaspora, to get a lot of these things solved. People would say these things, but sometimes people just don't know how to get them done. Hong Kong is just a piece of rock. Why is the Hong Kong dollar doing so well than even a US dollar? Because they built a lot of infrastructure in the background before getting certain things done. What is one thing that Ambassador Boyka is going to do? The rule of law. The rule of law is the one critical element that is stopping a lot of African countries from developing. Is that failure to roll out the rule of law. There are a lot of the economic crimes you see in Liberia is happening. It's just crimes of opportunity. We haven't built.
Sorry to interrupt you, but show me anywhere where Mr. Boyka has demonstrated any of those things that you're saying. Example, rule of law.
Well, remember now, as a vice president, you have limited power in terms of what you can or cannot do. But rest assured, if you compare what Ambassador Boyka and Ellen did to what is currently happening, the economy grew. And of course, they still had the challenges. And Ambassador Boyka himself said it. He said, look, we had opportunities that were squandered. He's honest enough to say that. But look at how the economy grew during the time they were there. The GDP was growing on average a little bit of 6.5% to 7%. He was part of that government under which the economy grew. No matter what you say, we live in a capitalist society. It's not socialism, right? We need money to survive. The GDP per capita under Ambassador Boyka and Ellen is so much better than it is under the pro-poor government. So being part of a team, you would take credit and you will also get blamed if the team does poorly. So he was part of the administration that led to a lot of the development that you see in the country right now. If you're working part of a team, Dennis, can you come out and say, oh, can you take credit for the success of that team? Is there an I in team, like the old adage goes? No, you cannot take credit. The team takes credit or the team goes down in defeat. So do we blame Weah? And I will wrap this up in 10 seconds. Do you just blame Weah? Do you say, okay, we're going to remove President Weah? No, you're going to clear the entire team because they've been extremely ineffective in solving the problems in Liberia, in all aspects of the problems in Liberia. Ambassador Boyka is going to do different. Why? He's been there. He's seen the mistakes that were made, and he knows how to get that stuff corrected. Bringing some highly technical people to get it done.
Let me go to Call now. Call, you had something to respond. And then Larry said, I think he's clearly throwing a jab at Mr. Cummings. He said business people don't do well. I don't know if Bo might agree, but let me go to Call first. Call, you had a rebuttal for Mr. Cummings. And then talk about this businessman thing. I don't know all the presidents, but I think there could be some successful business people that were president. But let me hear Cole. She has some good bend on history.
Okay, so, Mr. Cooney, the statement that Mr. Cooney made skewed what I said. And I need to point out for the people that are not aware of what happened in January. On the 22nd of January, 2018, when the current president took over, he actually dismissed the entire government down to the HR director. And he retained all of the ministers that were crew. And it was blatant, divisive, and short-sighted. He sabotaged himself. He retained the transport minister, my good friend Sam Wu. He retained the information minister, my good friend Eugene Nambe. He retained Mary Bro, who was also crew, at GSA. The three of them are still in government. In fact, Eugene got a promotion. So to say that he got rid of all of the corrupt people and replaced them with sound people, Mr. Cooney, is not true. We are not dead. We were alive in 2018. We witnessed the complete disregard for civil servants. The people that George Weah dismissed, most of them were not political appointees, but technocrats that had been experienced and had been working and had been educated and prepared. You cannot dismiss people down to the level of director of HR and think that you're going to be able to run a country smoothly. And if this is the way that you all advised him, it was ill-advised. Many of those people that he dismissed had been specifically trained. One in particular that I had the pleasure of not only working with, but learning with, is Mobile Yokwa. This is someone who went to school specifically for the task that he had at hand at the at Liberia Maritime Authority. He was dismissed for no reason other than the fact that he did not support Weah in the election. This is a young person who studied and prepared himself to handle a responsibility, a very specific responsibility at Maritime. And there's no corruption allegation against Mobile Yokwa. So I have to speak up about that issue. And I don't appreciate the statement that you made, Mr. Cooney, because you're grossly misleading the public, and you're either that or you're just unaware and just making stuff up. Most of those people that we have put down were people that the government financially supported their education for the purpose of serving in the capacity that they were serving in. And you sabotage the CDC government by removing technocrats. Nobody cares about political appointees. You're supposed to change your ministers and replace them with people you trust, but not people who are specifically trained in technical roles. So that's what I wanted to get out, Dennis. And what was the question you wanted me to address?
Yankwe Boma will address that about the businessman. So, businessman Cummings, according to Larry, and I'm paraphrasing, would not make a good president. What do you think?
Well, again, it's unfortunate that my brother will, make this kind of comparison, especially when you look at the port of, a lot of presidents who were once successful business people, and you want to pick two from out of those and try to use it as an example. I think it defeats that argument that you can't look around the world where you have even Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman, President Hayden. I mean, the list goes on and on. Who were businessmen before rising to the political scene. So for him to just dismiss all of those people and just take two individuals who,
I can give you 20. I can give you 20. I can give you if you sent to
Fox
in Mexico.
I claim my time. I claim my time. But for him to even just pick those two, if he had 20, why didn't he name them? But here's the thing. If we talk, and the funny thing is, he pivoted right there. He pivoted and said, Joe Boakai has the experience. But my brother, let me put it this way. And Joe Boakai himself admitted to it. And first of all, we don't even know where he stands right now. Joe Boakai, on one instance, he said he was at parked car. He told everyone. That's what he said. And then he went on spoon and said, Ellen confronted me with she consulted me with everything. Which is it? Is he lying? Forbes magazine say he's a billionaire. He came and said that he borrowed money. Look, let's go to his experience, the experience factor that you're talking about. What experience do you gain being a park car? If you be a park car, what experience do you gain? He himself has said it. And besides that experience, please show me one of his accomplishments. What has Joe Boakai done for which Liberian can say, thank you, Joe Boakai, other than him taking our paycheck? Because we pay him. And thanks to us, we pay him for doing nothing for 42 years. We pay this guy for doing nothing. Can you point to anything that Joe Boakai has done in Liberia that benefited Liberians? There is none. We don't have record of 42 years of accomplishment in Liberia, other than he was vice president for 12 years. And within that 12 years, he himself admitted that he was a parked car. So you can't give me an experience of a car that is parked. And I know if a car is parked that long, it needs oil change. And I'm not sure the last time that Joe Boakai changed his oil, to be very honest with you. So you can't come here and try to say, oh, Joe Boakai has this experience and Cummings doesn't. Look, when it comes to business, I don't think anyone on this panel can disagree with Mr. Cummings' level of intellect when it comes to business. This man has proven himself everywhere. He rose from the dungeon of Liberia, okay, in the slums of Point 4. He brought himself up by his bootstraps. He came to America at the time where racism was even at the apex of everything, okay? He allowed himself to assimilate with the situation, and he excelled. He did very well, rising to the level of one of the highest positions you can find in corporate America, in global, on a global company. He didn't get there. No one knew him. No one knew his parents. No one knew his father. He didn't bribe anybody to get his way up there. He excelled. He performed. He went to Nigeria. He took Coca-Cola from here and brought them here. So the history is there of excellence. Mr. Cummings has proven history of excellence anywhere. You cannot point to a flaw of Mr. Cummings as a corporate manager. And I will challenge you tonight. Show me a flaw of Mr. Cummings as a corporate manager. He has always excelled. We can't say the same thing about Joseph Boakai. His only argument is, I was second, I didn't have control. Well, if you were second, you didn't have control, and you didn't even speak, even as of now, national issues going on, and you're not speaking to it. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not the kind of leader that we want in this country. We want a leader who will stand and speak for his people.
Thank you. Mr. Cooney, you were smiling. But here's my question, and because we're deep into our time now. So let's talk about pathway, because we're saying, you know, who can be president. We now see some disagreement between Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Boma. But let's talk about pathway. Start with demographics, right? If you believe, or let me start with you, Mr. Cooney, if you believe that President Weah is going to win, talk to me about his pathway to victory 2023. Let's start with which demographic, which county, which district do you think is his base, and what is his path to victory? Hold on, Mr. Cummings. Come again.
I'm going to be very brief on that point and pivot to some other issues. Look, George Weah won 14 out of 15 counties in Liberia to become president of Liberia. George Weah still remains immensely popular in Liberia. So he does not have a single demographic that he relies on for victory. His victory is spread out throughout the country. So, but having said that, I just want to pivot to some other points. People talk about security. You know, there are some people that are very impatient with our country because George Weah is president. You're talking about security. This is the first time since 1990 that the security of that country is entirely in the hands of Liberians under George Weah administration. For almost 30 years, our security was in the hands of foreigners. So there are challenges, but at least let's give credit to this government. And
we have fired all the trained police.
You think that I don't like when you're talking, I don't interrupt you. Why you quick to get panic when CDC speaking? Why the panic can come in? You don't
go ahead, Mr. Cooney. Call, please don't interrupt.
Tough love.
Go ahead, Mr. Cooney.
I'm making a factual statement because I was in law enforcement since 1990. The security of that country has been in the hands of foreigners. For the last 4 years, it is the first time that we are providing security for ourselves. That does not excuse whatever challenges that the country may be facing. When I was in law enforcement, there were killings, there were rape, many unsolved crimes, like you find in any society. In the very America we in today, there are killings in Chicago, killings in Philadelphia, killing all over the place. So let us stop selling our people this Kool-Aid that when the CCP win, there will be no security problems in our country. That's point number one. Point number two, this whole idea of worker experience. This is a 42-year-old man whose only experience is to move from one government job to the other. Over the years, you talk about rule of law. What has been worker contribution to the fight for social justice in our country? When other Liberians put themselves on the line, when other Liberians endanger their lives to fight for social justice in Liberia, where was Joseph Boakai? You talk about agriculture. This is the man that squandered the Libyan loan. All of the equipment for that project is laying down somewhere in Lofa County. Is this the man that will develop agriculture in Liberia? I don't think so. This is the tragedy that is in the CPP. And you talk about Mr. Cummings. I don't have much argument against Cummings' competence and other things like that. My only point is, this is the same argument we have about Ellie. She was an international expert, worked with United Nations, worked with World Bank, and Liberia was going to have a total rebirth under her administration. We all know where she left Liberia. You talk about GDP. Do you know how many times Liberian GDP being growing? Have you read a book, Grow Without Development? There is no complete sense in talking about GDP when that GDP does not translate to improving the lives of the people. So to keep bragging about GDP, it's just complete braggadocio. And then let's go back to Cummings. You know, he got it so kind hard to fight for Liberia. Cummings was in the United States when Liberians were faced with immigration issues, whether deportation, whether DED, whether even the issue of dual citizenship. This man did not take a public position on any of these issues. So when has he started loving Liberia? When you want to become president? So these are the questions we're going to ask. We were here running up and down to give Liberia to immigration status. What was he used? Why didn't he use his influence, his leverage? Did he even run one bus for one Liberian to go to DC? When Charles Taylor was reaching hell on our people in Liberia, we protested to the United States government. Where was Cummings?
Thank you.
All of this newfound love for Liberia because someone wanted to become president, and I always like to.
I will tell you where was Cummings.
And
Mr. Kune,
on his own show. And Dennis, let me respond to this quick.
Hold on, let him finish.
Dennis, please, man.
Go ahead, Mr. Kune.
You please get respect for me because I respect all of y'all.
Go ahead, Mr. Kune. You have 15 seconds to complete.
And I always make this disclosure. Mr. Cummings addressed a ULA convention when I was president, but it was only during the political season. He was not a politician. But before that, he never appeared to any community, ULA community event. So my question is, what was this love for Liberia? Is it to discover a political mission?
Thank you.
So in concluding,
that's the thing we conclude.
Despite everything that I've said, I believe Mr. Cummings is the best person to put up a fight. Not that he will win, but sometimes you want to be the best team. You know, Brazil will not be happy if they beat Afghanistan. You want to be the best team. We will beat him, but he's the best. You know, somebody say, no player better than.
Thank you, Mr. Kune. Mr. Kune will come back to you. I want to go to Larry because he's just coming. Go ahead, Larry. You have a lot on your plate.
So, look, listen. The great thing about America is you can be a Larry Kennedy, come from Liberia, be an orphan, and rise up to be a vice president in the largest investment bank in the world on Wall Street. You can do that. So let's not go into the whole corporate America thing, because I've run organizations in the US for a number of years. And apparently Mr. Kune doesn't truly grasp the importance of economic data, what stagflation is all about. You know, you have a population growing at 2.4%. At the same time, the poverty reduction strategy is not working. It's not getting any better. So the population is growing faster than we can defeat poverty in the country. He can talk about Carla in the 60s report, growth without development. But when we start looking at gross national income, when we start measuring the numbers, when we start looking at how the country economy has been mismanaged, we can tell that there's nowhere in the world where you can bring in a large group of non-technical people in a fragile state and expect to grow the economy and grow the country. It's never happened before. It's not going to happen now. And if we continue down that path where you have stagflation, where you have inflation eaten at the purchasing potential of the people, it's going to lead to chaos. Because when you look at it, when you look at Arthur Okun's law, right, the misery index, when you look at the countries that are miserable around the world, including places like Afghanistan, including places like Haiti, why do you think Haiti is going through? Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, what do you think is going through what it is that they're going through? They have stagflation. Inflation is so high. At the same time, the economy has been falling year over year. 3 years in a row, this economy hasn't gone above zero under George Weah. I'm not going to attack Cummings. I'm here to really promote Ambassador Boycott because, and again, I can get into the details of how many presidents. I can take you all the way back in Africa, and I can take you in America, presidents who are very successful business people who have been done extremely well. But I'm not here to really downgrade Cummings because Cummings, at the end of the day, he is still better than what we have right now. Why? Because he's been in corporate America and he's seen how processes work. I've been there my entire life. I started as a teenager. I've seen how it works. Today, I teach finance and economics, and I still run a technology boutique firm. And I'm traveling the country training people on project management as well. So I've seen it. I've been there, done that, right? So the problem is the country right now as it is, it's not going forward because the people who are running it do not have a clue as to what to, they don't have that experience of getting it done. I'm not a politician. I cannot speak on health services. The thing that I know is finance. The thing that I know, what Ambassador Boyka is going to bring to the table, he's going to bring a critical mass of the technocrats. Teach the people back home, work as a team, bring that together. So look, when the president, the guy who, I can't think of his name, from Sierra Leone, he came into power, Madabio, came into power at the same time that Weah came into power. So if we start looking comparison, the Ebola afflicted countries, right? Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea. We can't blame Ebola because Guinea economy started rising. Why is that important? Because it translates into creating opportunities where people will get jobs, they'll be able to get money, they'll be able to feed their family. But when the economy is not growing, if it's shrinking like it has under this president, people are not going to get the jobs they need.
But Mr. Kennedy, sorry to interrupt you. We almost is a consensus that the economy is not doing well under President Weah. What we are not sure of now is how Joe Boyka is going to do better. What did he do at the different places that he worked that we can look at and
Joe
say,
Boyka,
based on his records, he's able to accomplish X, Y, Z. That's what I need you to show.
Listen, Joe Boyka didn't have the opportunity to put someone at the finance ministry, put someone at the central bank, put someone in the agriculture ministry. He didn't have that opportunity because he was not the president.
Right.
One of the most important
minister.
Yeah,
he was not PNC boss.
But you see, it's not just one sector. One of the most important jobs in the country is the person who is running the central bank. Why? Because the central bank stabilizes the economy. They make sure inflation is at a level where people will still have that purchasing power. They make sure the economy is growing. Look at who we have running the central bank. He was a compliance officer at JP Morgan.
But we have not heard from Joe Boyka anything concerning these policies. He has not put forward anything talking about, okay, this is how I'm going to this is who I'm tapping for central bank governor. This is what I'm going to do differently, or even publicly critique.
It is way too early to start saying you're tapping this person and that person.
What did he?
He cannot tap anyone for the central bank in the 80s.
He has not spoken about any public policy that I've heard of. He has not done so. I've never heard his position on anything whatsoever. Rice riots, the peace process, disarmament, dual citizenship, everything that you think of, Joe Boyka doesn't tell us anything.
Well, I will send you a paper from Joe Boyka that will help you, that will educate you on some of the policies and proposals out there, because it's one thing for people to talk about it, right? So look, people come in and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But what proof or guarantee you have is going to succeed? You rather Ambassador Boyka come and say he's going to do this, do that, and then it turn out to be a big failure. People make these wild promises. The pro-poor agenda is nothing but aspirations. It was big, big promises. Where is it today? It's a big disaster. It hasn't done what it's meant to do. It made the people poorer, that's for sure, but it hasn't met its stated objectives of elevating the poor. So you want someone to come and lie to you, or you want someone to tell you, say, hey, listen, this is what we can do within our capacity.
Okay, let me go to Cole. And Cole, this is something you are very familiar with the Ellen government because you worked there when Joe Boyka was president. Walk me through any accomplishment of Joe Boyka that you know of, or any public policy, any public position that he has taken since the 1970s. I mean, at least I pay attention to politics, but I don't see anything. So,
Joseph Boyka is not a boisterous personality that goes around bombastically, promoting himself, which is because he demonstrates his accomplishments through personal relationships. When he was at the agricultural ministry, he wrote tremendously about projections that he had for the Republic of Liberia, what the country should do as far as agricultural plans. Those documents are still there. So while he was vice president, I served in various capacities, not only with the government, but also with the United Nations. I will just give you a quick anecdotal story about Joseph Boycott. When I was extremely frustrated, because when you try to be a reformist in any situation that's toxic and dysfunctional, people fight you. They even try to kill you, actually. And one of the times when I was very close to saying, you know what, the heck with this place, I'm going to resign and go back to take my children and go back to the States, because, you know, these people are not ready, and I'm not that I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my efforts, because everywhere you turn, there would be someone fighting whatever progress you were trying to push forward. I went to go, and the other thing, his door was always open. I went to go see Mr. Boycott this particular day, and I was so frustrated. I wanted to tell him I'm leaving y'all government, and I'm leaving all these crazy people. And he looked at me. First of all, I was talking to him, and he had his head down, and I just kept talking. He took in every word I said. When I was done, he lifted up his head and he said to me, he said, my daughter, our responsibility is to see talent in young people like yourself and encourage you and not discourage you. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you have to be exposed to the hatred and dysfunction. He said, but these are our people. We have to work through it. He said, dig down inside yourself and pull out that courage and that strength that you have, that you inherited from your father, and face these people head on and do your job. He said, there's no crying in public service. You're not here for us to pet you or baby you. You came home to serve your people and do it with all your strength. I will support you, I will encourage you, but I want you to go and do what you came to Liberia to do. Move the mountains you came to move. And that is my personal experience with Boycott. Yeah. So I know that he is a person who believes in transforming the country, and he understands the challenges. I personally have no interest in returning to Liberia to serve in government ever again, because it was a horrible experience. I do believe I accomplished some things, but I think Liberian people don't really understand the depth of dysfunction in that place. And having someone that understands it and realizes the types of hell that people will be up against, I think is important. And I said it when we first started, and I'll say it again. CPP collectively has some of the most talented people in the country. We just need to get our stuff together and make sure that those people do what they're supposed to do. I personally am not going to be able to, pick a side, as you'll say, in this situation, because I support the CPP, and whoever CPP pushes forward. In my little humble way, I'm going to, back them 100%, because I see the people that are behind both Boycott and Cummings, and I think there are a lot of talented people that can do a lot for the country.
Thank you. Mr. Sharif, let me come to you because the picture that I see at almost at the end of the discussion is Weah government. Weah is bad. Boycott may not be the one. Cummings may not be the one. Things are. I want to talk to me about the way forward. Okay, you being very vocal about the current administration not doing well. The CPP holding together is one of the way you believe that the government, this current government, can be replaced. And we already see a crack in the CPP with the brouhaha in the LP. What is the way forward? What do you see? You follow these things very closely.
When you say the way forward, what do you mean? The way forward for who?
2023. What are we up against? And what's the way, this whole thing, we can have a president or an administration that will be responsible, effective, and efficient? Because from what I'm hearing is a gloomy path.
I suppose you are, asking me questions about what are the chances of the different, candidates,
CPP
the lay
is
of the
falling
land.
apart, and you have said CPP must hold together for them to win Weah. Weah is not doing well. So how do we move forward?
Well, let me go to something that I was that I said on the last show. And if time permits, that I can kind of elaborate on. I do know that Liberia does not have an electoral college system. I am cognizant of that fact. We are not, we don't conduct elections. Our results are not, based on how many counties that you carry. But what I was trying to say on that show is that, these candidates, they have to go down and speak to people in rural Liberia as well as urban Liberia. So if George Weah somehow managed, and I don't know how he's going to do that, but if he somehow managed to, say, get the plurality of vote in Montserrat and get similar in Bong County, Nimba County, and the Southeast, he can be reelected. And he has the formula to do that. Jewel Howard Taylor has to be treated nicely now from now on to 2023. Prince Johnson, whether any of us like it or not, he is the kingmaker in Nimba County, so he has to now be treated nicely. That's his pathway, because once he does that, it becomes difficult now for the collective opposition to put up any kind of second round challenge. And so for the opposition, what they can begin to do, as I mentioned, the other day, is to begin to go into George Weah's backyard, make him work for his money, go to the Southeast. Although I know that this is not by electoral college, but you can begin to peel off, some of those core demographic, right? I mentioned Zwedru is very diverse. Not everybody in that city area is behind George Weah. So then you can begin to talk to those people. Your message has to be a message of hope, a message of enlightenment. Your message has to be simple. So it's a question of messaging for the opposition. You asked a very, very important question. What has Boakai done? Boakai has done a lot, but Boakai has a problem of messaging. So he is not appropriately, correctly messaging his message to the Liberian people. So he has to begin to do that. Now, Cummings, already for his part has something going for him, but neither Cummings nor Boakai is able to ensure that their message get out there. And one of the things that's a stumbling block, right, that's going to be a stumbling block if they don't get this together pretty quickly, is that the opposition is coming apart, right? So now all the partisan bickering, that's the last thing that the opposition needs. And so you put all of that together, it is a very, very interesting situation that none of us on this panel, I don't think, can clearly state which way 2023 is going to go. And one of the panelists real quick mentioned that, it's too early. No, it's not too early. In politics, right after the election should be the beginning of campaign, right? So you don't wait till 2022 and start to make the intensive effort. You don't wait till 2023. You don't wait till 2 months to the election to begin to campaign. You have to campaign the day you were defeated or the day you won that contest. It has to begin right away. You have to talk to the Liberian people. You have to show the Liberian people what you're going to do differently. I don't think right now the Liberian people are hearing from the opposition as to what they're going to do differently. And that's their conundrum right now.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, what is Cummings' pathway to the presidency? Does he have any base? I know he tried to dismiss that the last time, but what is his pathway to the presidency?
Well, there are a lot of ways. And again, before I go to that, I just wanted to address something quick.
Can you start with that before you go to the other one?
I'll come to that, Dennis, but I just wanted to dispel this notion that Mr. Cummings have not done anything prior to him becoming the standard bearer of, actually the leader of the ANC. Look, Mr. Cummings, I heard you on one of the same show here, and you admitted that Mr. Cummings, in one of your EULA activities, he reached out to you. So unless you were telling us you were fabricating it, or if you're now trying to be dishonest, but you did say that Mr. Cummings reached out to you to see how he can help. That's something that you say on this particular show. So the fact that you say, oh, Mr. Cummings was not doing this, I find it very disingenuous. But that be that I made. Let me just say this. Let me say this. And again, thank you for saying that the last time, because I think it was worth highlighting. But again, and even our host here, Dennis, can admit to us when Mr. Cummings was in the United States, he did a lot of contributions to the Liberian community. So you can't dispute the fact that Mr. Cummings did all of those things. It's evidence is there. The records are there that Mr. Cummings contributed to Lama. Mr. Cummings paid almost 50% of their activities. So you can't deny that. And also in 2004, before Mr. Cummings even dreamed of becoming a politician, this man led medical supply. He took medical supplies to Buchanan, to a hospital in Buchanan. This is 2004. So he did not just start this thing like we say, like you want to print it that Mr. Cummings said this or he hasn't done anything. He has done a lot. In the very few years that we have seen Mr. Cummings, we've seen his activity. I can name a whole lot, but again, time does not permit here. But he's done that through his Cummings Foundation, Cummings Africa Foundation. He's done a lot. So let's not try to dismiss all of those contributions. Why it's true that George Weah has done a lot for some people in the refugee camps, probably some girlfriend, but he's done a lot. So we're not going to dismiss that. Mr. Cummings has done a whole lot, and let's acknowledge that, please. And then with reference to where the pathway for Mr. Cummings, look, Mr. Cummings has been clear. I know there is this big notion about, oh, Mr. Cummings doesn't have a base. That's what people tend to say. But look, I think this is one of the reasons that separate us as Liberians, where we look at a location and say, I own this location. And if we were to go by that, believe me, then I'm not sure if even the CDC would be happy, because Maserati was considered their stronghold, and look what happened to them. They got whooped. So there's absolutely no stronghold of anyone in Liberia. Mr. Cummings continued to say, Liberians are my stronghold. The youth that are not getting jobs are my stronghold. The market women that are hungry, that need loans to get to school, to do their businesses, that's my stronghold. The pimping boys that need fuel in their motorbikes to do all of those things, those are Mr. Cummings' stronghold. Every Liberian who is struggling with the economy, every Liberian who isn't going to school right now, every Liberian who is struggling to make living right now, that is Mr. Cummings' stronghold. If you ask him whether he's in stronghold in Nima County, or Mr. Cummings has made several strides in the last few years. We've taken tours of Nima County. I think a lot of you saw pictures of him meeting with chiefs and elders. Look, this is how a leader does things. He reach out to the people, try to understand what the needs of these people are. He reach out to them, he listens to them, he understands them. And this is one of the reasons I say now he's in a better position to move Liberia forward, because you cannot address the issue if you haven't listened to the issue. He has listened to the people, he's taken tours, and you admit on this platform, and I don't think anyone, I think other than George Weah, who's probably given, he's not even second close to Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings has made a lot of rounds in Liberia. He's taken a tour. He's gone to almost all the counties. So Mr. Cummings is taking this tour to listen to people, to see the roads for himself, to observe things, and then he will formulate a plan to how to address them. Already, there are plans in works for him to get this thing done. All it takes is for Liberians to make the right decision and select him as their president. And I can guarantee you, once that happens, everything that we're talking about here, everything that he see, everything that he heard, he will put those in action, and Liberia will move forward.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Tough Talking Thursday. Our topic, will the opposition unseat President Weah 2023? If your answer is yes, who is most likely to do that? And we are winding down. I'm going to be asking for your closing statement. But before that, we enter this part of our show, which is the Tabata of the day.
It's too late, baby, go to bed. I don't need your Tabata. Baby, oh, your Tabata. I'm gonna go away, your Tabata. My baby, oh, I don't need your Tabata. My baby, oh. Baby, I'm tired, I don't need your Tabata. Baby, oh, your Tabata.
Welcome back to Tough Talking Thursday. Every week, we take at least a minute to go around the room and talk about the nonsensical issue that is happening in our country, which in our southeastern language we call Tabata. So on Tough Talking Thursday, we don't condone that, right? We talk straight. So if there is Tabata, call it out as it is. Let me start with Mr. Larry Kennedy. Throughout the week, throughout the month, any Tabata happening in Liberia that you want to talk about? You have one issue.
I think I would stick with, Liberia is known for the Tabata, right? But I think I would stick with just one. The profound one was the American ambassador speaking today. That was very profound. The fact that so much had been spent on electricity, but still nothing seems to be working. It goes to show that the donors are fed up. We cannot continue the way we are because the donors are completely fed up right now. If anyone who hasn't seen that press conference, you need to go and take a look at it. To spend that much money and to see where we are, people are fed up right now. So we need to do something different.
Mr. Cooney, this is the Tabata movement.
Yeah, I just want to make a 30-second statement because I think
we will come to our closing statement. We're talking about Tabata of the day.
Well, the Tabata that I continue to see in Liberia is to characterize our judiciary as a George Weah judiciary, when in fact the entire judiciary was appointed by the Unity Party government. The Supreme Court is still dominated by judges appointed by Unity Party. The lower courts, both Code of Records and Code of Non-Records, almost all of them were appointed by the Unity Party government. The fact that opposition continue to refer to our judiciary that it is a George Weah simply because a ruling does not go their way, I think it is not just Tabata, is one of the greatest disinformation that has the propensity to crumble our institution.
Mr. Boma.
Well, I think I will concur with Brother Larry about the U.S. statement today. I think that was, and if anything, we as Liberians should be embarrassed, not because the statement came out on it, but look, we are an independent nation. We're supposed to be self-sufficient in certain things. We're supposed to be able to manage our own affairs in certain ways. Basic thing like electricity, we shouldn't have foreign partners coming telling us this is how you should do things. And even if they come and tell us how to do it, we still do it wrong. It's a travesty. I think for me to listen to that today, as a Liberian, it hurts my heart. And this is one of the reasons why there has to be change.
Mr. Sharif.
Yes, President Weah, the presidency is a very important position. It is the most important position in Liberia. And so this president needs to take that job seriously. So my biggest Tabata for the week or for the month is that this president continues to be a musician while still in the executive mansion. Okay, we have a lot of musicians in Monrovia. Please let the musicians do their thing and you do governing. And then when you retire as president, if you are defeated by the opposition, or if you do another term and after your term and you retire, you can then come back and play music. Please, we don't need the president being a musician, because what that tells us and the rest of the world is that this president is not serious.
Thank you, Mr. Sharif. Let me go to call.
I think the greatest Tabata right now is that.
And I like how you say it, Cole. I must admit.
Well, that's it. That's what you get. I'm gonna say here, be trying to squeeze, pronunciations that are not natural to me. So, I think that for me, the greatest Tabata right now is the level of just venom and hatred and envy and all kinds of selfish things going on in Liberian politics. I wish that people had a bigger future picture and had a better sense of duty when it comes to politics. I see a lot of people involving themselves in politics that have absolutely no doctrine or ideology. They're just involved because they're hero worshiping or following a crowd. That's unfortunate. And it is something that is not partisan specific. It is just a general cultural thing in Liberia. My hope for our country, my hope for our people is that we get some depth and we start taking some things more seriously and prepare ourselves for the incredible challenges that are ahead instead of playing these little frivolous games that I see going on.
Thank you. So nobody talk about the president wrapping himself in the flag.
I talked about that earlier. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was patriotic.
For me, the Tabata that I see is what's going on in the Liberty Party, where the leadership, they are like children, fighting for rice crust. Hey, I gave you money. Oh no, you're a BM. That's the complete Tabata, and I wish that did not happen. Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost at the end of our show. We'll go around the room so that we can get your closing statement, and you can have 90 seconds each. Let me start with Mr. Sharif. Your closing comments.
Yeah, so 2023 is a very important time in Liberian history. So depending on what the opposition and the electorate is going to do, will tell us what direction this country is going to go. We've had this autocratic rule for 3 years now, and 2023 can't just come soon enough. However, it is not a foregone conclusion that the opposition is able and capable. They may be capable, but if they are able to put their ass together to take this president down. And so if they're not able to do that, as you just mentioned a few minutes ago, the internal issues within the opposition, if they're not able to work things out, that's just going to create another opening for George Weah, who already has a large stash of cash with which to play with during the election. And so I will hope that, they can quickly get their ass together, if nothing else, for, a healthy competition and come 2023.
Mr. Kennedy.
Thanks, Dennis, for inviting me to the program, and thanks to the fellow panelists. Very civil conversation. Rarely get involved in these kind of conversations because people get on it and start throwing insults and a whole lot of nonsense that I have no patience for. So thanks, everyone, for being civil. Look, there's a framework in place with the CPP that the last man or woman standing, everybody will galvanize and support that person. So, I try to make sure that I'm not denigrating or trying to put anyone down, because at the end of the day, we all have to rally around that person and help them eventually remove this kleptocratic government. Here's the thing. The world has changed. Elections are nothing more than a popularity contest. The world changing means the unfortunate event at the H. hospital the other day, one thing that I noticed, besides the hospital being burnt down, there was a whole lot of young people running around with smartphones. Information can get around quickly. No longer can you just lie to the people and hide information from them. Information get out rapidly. There's no way that Adara Dillon could have defeated George Weah, as popular as he is, without Dillon being able to use technology and share information in terms of what this government was doing. George Weah never went to any debates. They never put out a true plan in terms of how to transform the country. Now that we've seen them in action, people are being educated. They're understanding what's happening. Look, listen, we're 25 months away. You're going to see a lot of things happening in terms of technology. The JNB team is doing a lot of stuff, and there's a reason why. Right now, I put the post out there the other day that, look, like any organization, team building, you have people who, when you start the forming stage, people get all excited. But then we're in the storming stage right now where people are going after each other. But hopefully things will kind of normalize, and then eventually we will start to perform in unity, provided everyone is willing to work together. The world has changed. George Weah cannot continue lying to the people that he's doing this when, in fact, you have someone like Chris Smith in New Jersey calling him kleptocratic. You have the Liberian ambassador saying they cannot keep being corrupt and still continue to and believe that the country is going to develop. So I just want to, say thanks again, Dennis, for inviting me, and thanks to everyone for being civil in this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney.
Yeah, and let me just start off with where the question is based tonight. The tragedy that is in the CPP is the fact that they have an octogenarian who has no record of anything in Liberia. 42 years wasted, no record on social justice, no record on any key advocacy issue. A serial bureaucrat that is very skilled at moving from one job to the other, sitting on the one end. And then on the other side, you have another person who appears accomplished, but unfortunately has no record of public service. Then in between those two, you find the basis of those two leaders kind of opposed to one another. And I make the prediction again, the CCP will definitely choose one candidate, but that decision will not filter down to the rank and file. There will be a situation where if Mr. Bwaka emerges, the co-supporters of Mr. Cummings will not support Mr. Bwaka. If Mr. Cummings emerges, the co-supporters of Bwaka will not support Mr. Cummings. At the top, at the leadership, there will be some kind of, friendship or maturity that will be exercised.
Is that your prayer or prediction?
I'm here to analyze and to make prediction. That's my analysis and that's my prediction. And the other thing I want to say quickly is that my brother here really didn't understand me on the issue of Cummings attending a ULA convention. I've said that repeatedly. I even repeated it tonight. So maybe he didn't hear it. But my criticism of that is that was when he was a politician. When we came into this country in 1990, the Liberian diaspora was faced with the issue of immigration.
You made that point. Just conclude, Mr. Cooney.
Hey, Dennis, I don't like this. You got 5 people when I'm making my point.
Mr. Cooney, it's almost 2 minutes.
You know, I won't come on the show. You got people attack me all over when I'm making my point. You already made a point. Okay, I'll close the show. I'm done.
No, I beg you, let
let you finish. Mr. Cooney, finish. Go ahead.
Mr. Larry spoke for more than 3 minutes. I just spoke for 30 seconds.
No, Mr. Cooney, keeping the time here is 2 minutes.
You are clocking me?
Mr. Larry went for more than
Mr. Cooney, go ahead.
Thanks for keeping track of my time there, Mr. Cooney.
Mr. Bowman.
That wasn't nice.
Thank you, Dennis, and thank you to fellow panelists. Look, this is my debut. Mr. Cooney, I'm speaking. You're saying you didn't want to speak. Give me a chance.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm out.
So, this is my first. I often resist to come on platform to debate or to even discuss issue, but I'm here now. So, thank you for inviting me, and thanks to the fellow panelists. Look, I started this show again by looking at the broader picture. Liberians have a choice to make. This is a critical time in our nation's history. Whether we want to stay in the past, and I wish Mr. Cooney was here to hear this ugly past that we have, or we want to stay in this present that is leading us nowhere, or we can go with the future. We have, people often say, well, let's try to just remove George Weah. Dennis, I submit to you tonight that removing George Weah is the easiest thing. I don't think we just want to remove George Weah. We want to remove George Weah and replace him with someone competent, someone who will lead Liberia to the future, someone who will do a better job than George Weah did. This is why I look at this thing and say popularity is not only what it takes for Liberia to advance. You can take someone who is popular and put him there. George Weah was popular. We can't deny that. But look at the result. But what we should be thinking of is putting someone who has the will, who can understand the international system, who has the connection, who can lure investors into Liberia, someone who has demonstrated that in the international community, in corporate America where he worked. And this is where I believe that Liberians should be going. Mr. Cummings was one of those who, growing up in Liberia as a young guy, born and raised, living with his parents. Father is a pastor, mom is a market woman. No one helped him to get to where he is. He understood the system, he perfected the system, and he lived by the system and excelled to where he is today. No one can deny his accomplishment. So, when we talk about public service, I think it's worth mentioning that, and Mr. Cummings was here. Cummings was here. I wanted him to hear this. Look, I don't think we're trying to find who has a better public service record, because if we did, then Mr. George Weah, who has public service record, he hasn't proven anything. So is that the kind of measure that he wants, someone with public record, when his own candidate cannot do anything? So what I'm trying to say here is that Cummings is committed to Liberia. Mr. Alexander Cummings is committed to Liberia. He said this so many times. He has come to help and beautify Liberia to what he believes it should be. Liberia is struggling right now. What we face right now is unusual. The government that we have now is unusual. The security system is not working in our favor.
Thank you, Mr.
We need a leader who will at least identify these problems. Mr. Cummings has identified those problems with his tours.
Thank you.
I feel hopeful, and and again, we shouldn't be here just to say we want to replace George Weah, but we want to replace him with someone that would take Liberia to the next level.
Thank you. Carl, you have the last word.
Our CPP strong. I'm confident we're going to, victory is ours, and victory looks like progress. It's victory for all Liberian people. I do know for a fact when either of the candidates, or even if there's a candidate that is yet unknown, whoever we put forth as the opposition candidate will unite Liberia, will not be pushing this divisive, uniting our parties so you can't serve your country nonsense. And, some of us who have already done our time in the gallows, we will support from afar. But I wish the best of luck to everyone who is in the CPP that wants to, and also in the CDC that wants to work towards the upliftment of Liberia. We have to put our country first, and I know for a fact the CPP government means a united country for the benefit of Liberia. So that's what I have to say. Thanks for having me again, Dennis.
Thank you. Tomorrow at this time, we're going to be having our literary hour. The topic, nationalism and national symbols. Dr. K. Moses Namwe and Jackie Sayer will be here. Please tune in 6 o'clock tomorrow for the literary hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for your time, and want to thank our viewers for hanging in here. Even those who are going to watch later on YouTube and other social media platforms, we want to say thank you so much. On behalf of all of us here at Focus on Liberia, keep your dial set here. Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we end with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.